Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to another Change Lawyers event. My name is Carlos. I work at Change Lawyers, and I'm going to give folks a couple of moments to join us. But for those of you already in the room, please let us know who you are. Type in the comments your name, your pronouns, where you are joining us from, and anything else you'd like to know. You'd like everyone in the room to know about you. We're so happy to be here with you and to foster these spaces of community and power building for folks who sometimes don't feel like they have a seat at the table. I am particularly excited for today's topic on values and how to align your values and how to discover what your values are. I feel like I'm constantly trying to align myself with my values. So, hi, welcome Ashley, and welcome Lori. Good to see the two of you again. And I see that there's quite a few people who are joining us for a repeat viewers who have joined us in the past. So welcome. So let's go ahead and get started. For those of you who just joined us, in the comments section, just let us know who you are, your name, your pronouns, and where you are joining us from. So welcome to Leaders Forum. Leaders Forum is a virtual leadership development academy that Change Lawyers is running this year. And today's topic is going to be on values and vision and how to align those with who you are and with the world that you interact with. I'm really happy to have some sort of very familiar faces joining us again. The folks from Hella Social Impact are going to be joining us to lead this session. And I'm going to introduce them. So welcome, Lynn, and welcome, Stefania. I'm really happy to see you all again and to learn from you once again. So I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Carlos. We are so happy to be back as always. Hi, Stefania. Welcome back.
Nice to be with you.
Last month, I was joined by Adita Rodriguez because I believe you were in Hawaii at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good to be back with you to talk about vision and values and vision, and it's really, this is, I think, where we shine. Oh, Adita's on. Hi, Adita. I think that this is really where we shine as an organization, is to help other organizations align their values with their vision and their culture. So we're going to talk about that today. Is there anything you want to say, Stefania, before I kind of jump into this opening moment?
No. Take it away.
Just jump right in.
Okay,
fantastic. So last time, if you were on with us last time, I gave you some homework. And that homework was to take a look at these values. And I'm going to, Carlos, if you will share that link in the comments, please, the Dare to Lead list of values. And this comes from the work of Brene Brown, who we referenced last time as well. And just one thing that this says, and this, I really just like this, the words that are at the top of this document. And I'm just going to read them to you. Living into our values means that we do more than profess our values. We practice them. We walk our talk. We are clear about what we believe and hold important, and we take care that our intentions, words, thoughts, and behaviors align with those beliefs. So I'm just going to read it one more time because I just feel like it's so clear. And we like to speak plain here at Hella. So Living into our values means that we do more than profess these values. We practice them. We walk our talk. We are clear about what we believe and hold important, and we take care that our intentions, words, thoughts, and behaviors align with those beliefs. So as you scroll down and take lists, and you can download a PDF and have it. And so if you scroll down, you'll see a whole list of possible values, all the way from accountability to wisdom, and there's places to write in your own. And the activity that she and her folks recommend that you do is you do an activity where you explore these values and you think about, okay, you pick some, you start with like 10 or so, and you circle those values and you say, these are really, really important to me. But then she recommends that you don't stop narrowing it down until you personally only have 2. Let's talk about why that's important. Why is it important that you only have 2 as opposed to 10 or 15? Because I could look, I mean, right, Stefania, you could look at these values and like, there's a lot that are important to you, right?
So many. So
yes.
many.
So many, like even more than 10.
All of them, yes.
All right.
Almost all of them, yeah.
There's some in here that, I don't really value, I don't know, thrift. Thrift is not a value of mine, 100%. And that's like, for me, it's not. There's a few that are not that, important to me. But so many are. But why do we think? Can I pretend like you're my student, Stefania, for a second? Why do you think that as an individual we should have 2 and only 2?
Well, I'm thinking about, I'm a little bit, I feel like I'm a student that has had a little bit of like a head start.
And that's why I picked on you.
The front of the class person. No.
Yeah.
We and we'll get into this, but we talk a lot about living our values and putting those values into practice. And if I think about how I can be really intentional with the values that mean most to me, I know personally that 15 or more values would be really difficult for me to show up practicing every day. And so the way I'm thinking about narrowing it down, and as a Libra, that's nigh impossible, but to get it to a place where I know that the values that I hold most dear to me are also ones that I can practice and I can lean into every day and feel like I'm being authentic and true to myself.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And so I want to remind us, or introduce, if you don't know, that this comes from the work that Brené Brown does around leadership and how important it is to be courageous leaders. And this work is so important to what we do because we believe that in order to, if you're meeting us for the first time, Stefania and I are 2 of 4 co-founders of Hella Social Impact, where we help organizations and individual leaders show up for racial justice. And we believe that the 2 most important elements of leading an anti-racist organization, an organization that shows up for racial justice, is to be courageous and to have a wild imagination. And this is the topic where we kind of put those things together. You have to have the courage to act on your convictions, the courage to act on what's important to you. And like Stefania says, if as a leader, you're like, oh, I highly value 15, 20 things. Not that you can't find them important. Of course you can find these things important, but you really have to, courage comes from that place of knowing what you would really go to bat for, what you would like. Lori wrote a focus point. Yes, it's at the core. Core and courage come from the same root, right? Like what lives like here in your heart. And that's where the courage comes, so that you can access that place of imagination, your vision. What are you building towards? It's not just what you're working against, right? Sometimes we get in that space. We're talking about, especially when we're talking about racial justice, we talk about, even in our language, we talk about dismantling harmful systems of structural racism and white supremacy. So we talk about what we're trying to get rid of, but we can't really build towards what's not going to happen. We're trying to build towards what is, what we see as what we can see, feel, and hear in terms of what changes we're trying to make in the world. And so we can't really get there unless we know what our foundation is. And that's why you have to focus on two as an individual. I'm curious how many folks out there, I'm going to ask a bunch of questions, and if you answer in the comments, fantastic, or you might just answer to yourself, and that's okay. But I'm curious, first of all, how many of you are working for an organization or with an organization whose organizational values are aligned with your personal values? Is there an alignment there? And I'm wondering that how do you know? How do you know there's an alignment? And how many of you are working in organizations where there are stated values, like this says, where the values are professed on a website, but they're not actually connected to how the organization behaves in the world? Or on the opposite, how many of you are working with an organization where it's completely aligned, where the stated professed values on the website are actually like the place where leadership moves from? Because that's what we want. That's the kind of thing that we want. So that's what we're getting into. So think about that. I'm gonna bring up some slides here for a second. Stefani, if you have anything you want to say while I'm doing that.
Yeah, I want to just underline that if you feel prompted to share in the comments, please do share the answers to Lynn's questions. And while Lynn was asking those questions, I don't know why, but my mind immediately went to like a CEO, executive director type of person. They always love to share mission statement, value statements. And I had a vision of somebody, maybe one of us, sitting in an audience where this type of person was speaking and weighing what those questions that you were asking. Does this organization that I'm associated with, do they really live into their values? And how do they do it? Or how do they not? Right. And as Lori points out, the organization may hold those values strongly, and leadership may hold those commitments strongly, but there might be folks within that organization who don't see eye to eye with that.
Yes. And we're going to talk about that too, because that's the part of it, right? Values are professed but not practiced. So there's a way to make this happen, and we're going to walk you through that. That's what we do. This is what we do every day. Bread and butter is help organizations and their leadership understand how to move into a place where the values are not just professed, they are practiced. They are practiced by the entire team. It starts with 100% hiring people who share your values, which sounds simple, but it's true. And creating a culture in which those values can be practiced. So let's go through all of that. Oh, hi, Megan. Oh, so Megan's on the call. Megan is part of the Hella community, which is our online professional community of entrepreneurs, creators, and DEI professionals who are standing up for racial justice. And yes, Megan is in this process right now of values alignment. And I was actually thinking of you, Megan, when I was putting this together, because I know that you're deep into this. Okay, so let me share this first screen. So this is what we're talking about here. And we're calling this kind of framework the walking your talk framework. So how does this look like? So you can see that at the bottom of this triangle in black, these are our values. Our values are at the core, at the foundation. They undergird everything that we do. We're going to skip up to the top. The brown triangle is our vision and mission. I don't like to get too caught up in like what's the difference between a mission statement, a vision statement. I know that there are people out there who are like, there's an exact right answer and difference between those two things. I'm not one of those people. For this purpose, what we mean by that little triangle up at the top is what are you here to do? What is the change that you want to make? And what's your unique place in making that change? That's what we mean by mission and vision. And what connects it in the middle is your culture. How do you access your values every day as an individual, as an organization? This is really important for an organization. How do you access those values every day so that you are moving in the direction of your vision, of your mission? So we're going to go through our values and our mission and our culture as Hella Social Impact as an example of what this looks like. And hopefully this will help you if you're running an organization like Megan is and going through this process, or you work for an organization and you're trying to figure out how to make these values not just professed but practiced. So our mission at Hella Social Impact, why we exist. We exist to notice, name, and dismantle systems of structural racism and white supremacy. That's why we exist. That is 100% what we're doing, why we're here. That's the top of our triangle. That is, and if you work for a nonprofit organization, you do a lot of work around this. Your mission, your vision statement is very, very important. That idea of like, if we can put ourselves out of business, like once all the systems of structural racism and white supremacy have come down, we can put ourselves out of business. We are not a nonprofit organization, but it doesn't matter. The same thing holds true. We, come from the world of impact, of business for impact, of business as a force for good, as it were, and so we believe that no matter what your organization, nonprofit or for-profit or government, etc., you are here for a greater mission. Part of our mission also is also what we do, right? So that is like what's our unique role in making that happen? Because we're not the only ones that have that mission or have that vision of a world free from white supremacy. So what we do at Hella is we identify leaders at all levels of an organization and empower them with the skills and tools and connections and knowledge to make transformative cultural change. So we are working to co-create safe and inclusive workspaces. So again, we're always thinking about, what does that look like? What are those safe and inclusive workplaces for Black, Indigenous, non-Black people of color? What do they look like? Like physically? What do they sound like? What do you hear in spaces like that? What do those spaces feel like? Stefania, do you want to just tell folks quickly about like the activity that we do around this?
Yes. So as you're taking notes and jotting down sort of what is, who are we, why we exist, what do you do, what do we do in your own personal organizations, the way that we get at the what we do is we created a very simple Google slide and divided it into 3 parts. So what does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like to achieve, your what? And we just collaboratively filled that in. And we do the same thing with all of our clients. They just collaboratively fill in based on their personal values, because that's where really it comes from. And this is another way you can sort of uncover what's important to you, what is most important to you. What does your ideal workplace look like? And then from there, it's really easy to pull out some goals. When you can see it, written down, and you're thinking about the ultimate, dismantling, or the ultimate showing up, or however you want to frame it for yourself. That's the future. That's the ideal. So how do you get there? Pull out some of those. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? And make them actionable.
It also gives you a marker for success, right? So one of the things, we discovered is that we know that we're successful. One of the ways we know that we've been successful in our work is when we go into an organization and after we're done, the Black folks and folks of color in the organization say, "Oh, I finally feel like someone's listening to me." Like, so we hear those words, like we listen for words like that, and we know, okay, we're making a difference here. And so we have to know what it sounds like, it feels like, looks like, in order to know that we're moving in that direction. So that's our vision. That's the top of our triangle. Great. Moving on. So once we get there, then we go, we skip the middle. These triangles not in order. You start at the top. What do you want to see? What's the change you want to see? Then you go down to the bottom. You go down to the core, to the guts, to the foundation. That's your values. As a person, Brene Brown recommends you have 2. As an organization, you may have more than 2, and that's okay. But I recommend that you don't have more than 5, because it's a similar idea that as an organization, if you have 6, 7, 8, 9, 20, whatever, 15, then you can't realistically integrate those values into how you do business. So we at Hella have 4, which makes sense. There's 4 of us. So we have 4. Our process of coming to this 4, people ask this a lot, and it's a little bit unfair, because I have to admit, our process for coming up with 4 went ridiculously fast, because we all came together knowing we were already values aligned. We'd already worked together. So we did go through a process of saying, okay, what are kind of individual values that are important to me as an individual? And when we put them on a piece of paper, I think we had something funny, like 3 of them were exactly the same already. Like, it was something like that. It was like really, really fast. And then they took us probably, I don't know, like 10 or 15 minutes to get to these where we felt like, okay, do these feel like our 4? Yep, we moved on. It's not going to take everybody that little time. But the process still holds true. It's a great thing if you're a smaller organization. Start with your personal values. Have your folks do the Brene Brown activity, come in with their 2, see what's aligned, see what's there, and figure out. One thing that I talked with Megan Yarnell about was do a process of kind of grouping, of kind of clustering, see which ones seem similar, and see how you can find, okay, what's really at the core here of this organization, given what people's personal values are. That might be a way to do it. Or you might be a solopreneur, or maybe have another business partner, and maybe the values won't come from a team. Maybe it does come from you. And maybe you do start with your personal values, and understand, okay, so how do I want to live these values as a professional, which might be a little bit different. But there's no super clean, easy process. It's just kind of like digging in and just continuing to ask yourself, what's the most important? What's the most important? What's the most important to how I want to do business? So here are the four we came up with. Ours are courage. As Dr. Maya Angelou says, courage is the most important of all the virtues because you can't practice anything else without it. We believe that to be the case. Second, we believe we value compassion, and I'm going to read this whole bell hooks quote because to me this is like at the heart of what we mean by this value. For me, forgiveness and compassion are always linked. How do we hold people accountable for wrongdoing and yet at the same time remain in touch with their humanity enough to believe in their capacity to be transformed? I love that quote so much. So that really spoke to us as an organization. This idea of like compassion is not about being like, yes, like no matter what you do is okay. Compassion is like really gritty, right? It's like it's really connecting to the humanity of all people, no matter what, even when we're holding them accountable for harm. Our third is care. We are a caring organization. It's all about what we can do for ourselves, for each other, for other folks. And then finally, trust. Trust is key. We talk a lot about speaking plain. We talk a lot about like that practice of showing up over and over and over again. This Eartha quick quote, I'm a dirt person. I trust dirt. I don't trust diamonds and gold. We trust the dirt at Hella. So those are our four: courage, compassion, care, and trust. So then we have those, and they live at that foundation of our triangle. Before I move on, is there anything else you want to say about that, Stefania? I want to make sure I can't really see you.
No. No. Well, yes. Okay. Yes. I want to extend your point about compassion and care in this work in particular. We couldn't really do this work successfully if we didn't have those two values at our core. And like you said, compassion, yes, of course, we have compassion when we're centering Black, Indigenous, and non-Black folks of color in our work. We also have to have compassion for the folks that we want to bring along in our work towards racial justice. And so we intentionally put ourselves sometimes in harm's way in order for that to happen. We become the running of interference, if you will, between those folks, those potentially harm-causing folks, and the other folks within an organization who have the lived experience of being harmed. And our goal is to move everyone towards racial justice, knowing that everyone works at their own pace. And we have to also build in care, not just for the work that we do, but for ourselves because of that. And so we are very intentional about that word and very intentional about the folks that we work with, understanding that care and self-care, especially if you're doing the hard work of activism, showing up for others, community organization, all of that stuff, self-care is essential to everyone being able to consistently do that work long-term. So,
and that just a little pitch for our next and final workshop of this series with Change Lawyers, as our final session on June 1st is all about healing and care and self-care and community care. So that is key to what we're doing. So, okay, so y'all are with me, right? We have our triangle. We have identified at the tippy top what change we're going to make and what our role is in making it. The very bottom, we've identified our values, what's most important to us, what do we hold most important. And now here's the fun and hard and sticky part, which is how then do we access those values at the core every single day in every part of our organization as we work towards our vision. And to us, that's where organizational culture lives. That is the place where you intentionally say, what is our culture? How do we do things here? How do we move? How do we talk? How do we interact with each other? How do we interact with our colleagues? How do we interact with our partners, our clients, our customers, et cetera, et cetera? How do we answer emails? How do we show up for meetings? All of that is your culture. And we highly recommend that you create a very intentional culture code so that everyone understands what it looks like to live into your values in your organization. Going back to whose was that? Lori, I think, had that comment earlier on at 14 minutes past the hour that the organization has values, but not all of the coworkers are on the same page. The culture code is how you get all of the coworkers on the same page. And if they're not on that page, see ya. Because here's why this is so important. And we're going to share our organizational culture code in just a second because we love it and it's a good example. But let me tell you why it's so important first. It's so important because we are all, and because you're on this call, I'm talking about all of us, not just Hello Social Impact, but everyone here who's watching either live or in the recording later. You are here because you are trying to create and you're working to create a culture in your organization, in your community, in your world that is radically countercultural, meaning that you recognize the systems of oppression, structural racism, white supremacy, patriarchy, others that are harmful and that are harming people and planet. And you want to create something that's different. You want to create cultures that are based on different values, right? This is why we have to identify our value, because think about what are the kind of, so Stefania, just yell out. Stefania, yell out. What are the kind of values that our traditional organizations are based on?
Empowerment.
Okay, right. Competition.
Yeah.
Winners take all.
Mm-hmm.
Extraction.
Move. What is it? Move fast and break things. I can't stand that one.
Yes.
Yes.
Feel free to help us out here in the comments. Anything else that comes to efficiency. Yes.
Yep.
Being productive no matter what. No matter right? All of that. Right. So we're seeing the impacts, the negative, harmful, violent impacts of a white supremacy culture. Numbers. Yes, it's all about the numbers. So you in your leadership, whether you are at the tippy top of an organization or no matter where you are in your organization, you are creating a completely countercultural organization. And in order for folks to, and after we've been steeped in traditional harmful systems, we have to have it spelled out for us in order to practice. It's not obvious. We feel it. We feel what feels good to us, but we have to articulate it with words and actions in order to understand what we're building towards, right? Charismatic hierarchy, exactly, Pablo. The person with the most charisma is the winner and is at the top, right? So that we're trying to create something different. So your culture code is your opportunity to use words, use stories, use images to say, here's how we move here. Here's what we're practicing. I say it with a lot of passion because I care so much about this. This is at the heart of everything that we do. So ready? Here's our culture code. Stefania, will you share
Yes.
these first 4 tracks? I'll share the last 4 tracks.
I will, and let me also say that we think of this as our mixtape. We are very immersed in hip hop culture in our organization, and I mean, you could tell by our name probably, and so and our branding is very much comes from where we come from. And that is also part of our personal values. So we think of our culture code as a mixtape, and the components of that mixtape are tracks. Those are the tracks of our culture. So track 1 is We Got You, Fam. So we center Black, Indigenous, and non-Black people of color in all spaces so that we can show up just as we are. That includes ourselves, who all identify as Black or non-Black women of color at Hella. And that is absolutely true every time we show up in a space, everywhere we go. Whether it's working with our clients, whether it's doing something like this, we are holding so close that feeling of we got you, we got your back, we see you, we hear you, we believe you. Track 2, business is personal, because it is. Our business, we know that our business must enrich our bodies, minds, emotions, and spirits. So when we're talking about personal, we're talking about how do we feel doing business? We want to feel good about it. That speaks to that extractive capitalism that Lynn was talking about earlier. We're not a nonprofit. We're in business to make money. We have families, and we have things. We like things, and we want our business to be successful. That means we're working towards our mission of dismantling white supremacy, but not at any cost, not at efficiency, just to pull some values out of not at the expense of efficiency or because of numbers or anything like that. Track 3, we get to do anything we want. That means, for us, we're bringing our humanity to work, and humanity is what guides our decisions. And that means honoring our needs. So really paying attention to what is it that we need in this moment? How do we need self-care? Do we need someone to show up as a buddy in a meeting? Do we need a break? All of that falls under that track. And then that leads to track 4, which is be willing to walk away. No, we don't work at all costs. We don't accept clients automatically. In fact, we've had clients sort of bristle at our vetting approach, where they don't understand that the purpose of our initial conversations with them are for us to vet them as much as they're vetting us as a service provider. And if something doesn't feel right, if we feel like we will be very, very harmed working with that organization, or whatever the case may be, we are willing to walk away. And we pay very close attention to that. If it doesn't serve, it's not for us.
And before I move on to the next 4, I want to remind folks that this is how we practice our values every day. We don't always 100% get it right. Sometimes we are off, because we're human beings, and it's always a practice to live into your values. And so when we are off, when something happens, and we, in a discussion, we give too much attention to whiteness versus centering people of color, which happens because we've been trained to do that. We can always go back, track 1, I got you, fam, I got you, fam, I got you, fam, right? It's practice. It's a lot. And that's why these words, I don't want to underestimate the value of words. That's why our words and our word choice are important. We pick the titles of our tracks as things we can remember as a reminder. And we say them all the time, all the time, to ourselves, to each other. These next 4, we say all the time. Track 5 is speak plain. We say it all the time. It's the key to practice. The key to practicing noticing naming is learning to call things what they are. So if We get too caught up in jargon, or if we're trying to kind of be overly perfectionist with our words, or a client is, or a client's like, kind of, you can tell, right, when someone's saying something that they're not saying or they're trying to say. We say speak plain. At Hello, we speak plain. I invite you to speak plain. We say it to clients, we say it to ourselves all the time, because it's so easy to get caught up in like language that is trying to keep people comfortable, or trying to keep power dynamics, right? We always talk like in coded ways in our culture. So anyway, that's something we say all the time. Track 6, we say this all the time. Don't be worried about money. This is simply, we talk about money. We tell you how much something costs. We expect you will pay how much that costs. If we hire you and you tell us how much, you say, the price of this is $5,000. We say, great, we'll pay you $5,000. Or we say, no, thank you, don't work, whatever we can say. But we don't try to nickel and dime. We don't hide money. We don't hide issues with money. It's all about transparency with money. Track 7, take a buddy. We say this all the time. This is hard work and no one should go at it alone. So we're always, we've done this whole series, Stefania and I together. When Stefania couldn't come, Adita joined me. We attend and facilitate all of our meetings and sessions. We make decisions collectively. So we, and this is a key one, because sometimes when we forget, which we do for the sake of efficiency, which we've been taught, we go, we make the mistake. I didn't bring a buddy. That's why that happened. We can go back and practice it again. And track 8, we had nothing to lose and everything to gain. This really helps us when we get scared, because we get scared. We get scared about putting ourselves all the way out there. We get scared about speaking plain. We get scared about like all the rest, like living into the culture code. And we realize that, like, there is no time to stand by and be neutral, to be diplomatic, to be like, to be scared, to be honestly. I mean, like, you can be scared, like that's a real feeling, but we have to go all in. So that's our culture code. And like I said, the key is for you, when you're writing your own, let me go to the next slide. When you're writing your own culture code, you're thinking about, again, what are practices, like, don't overcomplicate a culture code. A culture code is not it's not a, what do you call those things? Like like an employee handbook with like tons of pages and tons of practices. No, it is simple. It's short and sweet. It's memorizable. That's a word. We know our 8 tracks in our head because we have to practice them. We should have them like on cards. Like cards we can pull up, like, what do I need to practice today? Like, it's like that.
Yeah.
Because I love this quote here. Pele, the soccer player, said, everything is practice. Everything. Right? When you're in the game, you're practicing. It's all practice. So I've said this many times. I'm going to say it again so that you understand what we're trying to teach here. Your culture code is how you practice your values every day, in every interaction of your business, as you work towards your vision. That triangle. So as you're thinking about walking your talk, and we have 14 minutes left. So if there are questions, if there are comments, now's the time to definitely put them in the chat. This kind of last slide is just the questions you want to be asking yourself as you kind of put your triangle together. Whether you are starting your own organization or you're building something, you're in startup mode, or you're working in an organization where you're trying to figure out how to align your values with your actions as an organization, these are the questions you're thinking about. First of all, understanding, really being clear. What's your vision for change? What's your why? Why do you exist? And what is your unique role in making that happen? That's the tippy top of the triangle. Then going to the bottom, what are the values you hold most important? Narrow it down. As an organization, no more than 5. As a person, no more than 2. In our humble opinion. 3, that middle of the triangle, as you work towards your vision, how do you intentionally live your values each day? Create your culture code. How do you want your teammates, your colleagues to act as you move? Like, how do you access those values? And then how do you communicate your vision, values, and culture with those you work for? How do you bring that to life? We bring it to life by sharing our culture code all the time. We share it with our clients. The clients understand how we are working. We do processes like this where we teach other organizations using our values and culture as an example. We think about it in all of our marketing materials. How do we speak plain in our marketing? How do we, all the things. We integrate it into all the processes of our business. I do have one more slide, and there's no questions coming up, so I just want to share this last quote. This is Angela Akinyemi. She's one of our long-term. She's a partner of ours. Works with one of our long-term clients, Akimbo Workshops. They're the producers of the Alt MBA. We've been in a process with them for over a year now of going through this exact thing. They've been in business for 5 years before really thinking about and really articulating very clearly their vision, values, and culture. And as an organization that had kind of been unintentionally doing good work, great work in the world, lots of customers, they were also unintentionally doing a lot of harm because there was so much unintention. I don't know what the word is. Lack of intention, that's the phrase. And as they said, we are committing to being an anti-racist, countercultural organization. How do we articulate that? So we've been working with them for over a year. They have a clear vision now. They believe that their vision is that learning is a human right and that they are part of making that happen in their organization. They have clear values now. Their values they also have 4. Their values happen to be, and Aditya, remind me if I forget, their values happen to be intention, collaboration, curiosity, and love. Those are their 4 values. And they have an entire culture code that's based on those 4 values. They call it their culture compass. And we're now in the process of aligning everything around those values and what those values look like. Thank you, I got them all right. And I love this quote from Angela because she says that it works. Because people often ask, like, can an organization really change? Can it really become more anti-racist and more socially and racially just? And she says, yes, it does. And she was there at the beginning when all this harm was caused, and she's still here. It does change. It changes everything. You don't think it's possible, really, but once you start doing it, you realize everything is okay. We're still in partnership with them. We're still working with them now to do a whole deep dive of their culture code into their systems. Angela's also a member of our Hella community, which we want to tell you about real quick. That is you, Stefania.
Okay, yeah, and I just wanted to, as you were speaking about the work with Akimbo, what came up was that we are trying to get folks to think about culture in a different way, in an actionable way, because I'm here in the San Francisco Bay Area, where companies and organizations like to talk about their culture a lot. It's often the most forward thing when these organizations are talking about hiring and hoping to attract folks to the organization. But aside from, we have free lunch and, whatever, ping pong tables or what have you, to us, that is not what culture means. We're talking about specific ways that you and your organization live into your values. So I just wanted to make that point. And a way to think about it is, if your organization has stated values, and we talked about that at the top, let's say one of them, George Floyd was murdered, and so many organizations decided that anti-racism was now going to be a focus of their culture, of their values. How do those existing values that you may have in mind align with anti-racism? In what ways are they specific to racial justice? That is a really good starting point when you're thinking about doing this exercise. If you're sort of lost and maybe you think of values exercises as being a little cringy, or it's not your comfort zone, a really specific way you can think about it is in terms of racial justice. How does that organization show up? What do their values say about that? And more often than not, existing values are misaligned with where that organization wants to go. So back to what I was going to talk to you about. So we've talked a little bit about our community. You've seen some members of our community here with you introducing themselves in the comments. And as we were moving forward in our work, what we realized is that the people who hold the work of racial justice, anti-racism, DEI, whatever you want to call it, within an organization are often alone. Or they're leading a DEI group, or maybe part of an affinity group where you're holding the work but may not be sure about how to move it forward within your organization. Who needs to be bought in? How do we create a culture code? How do we realign our values? How do we communicate what we're doing? All of those things. And again, going back to our track one of We Got You Fam, we don't want anyone to feel alone in this work. It's too hard. This work is too hard to be going it alone. So we created our Hella community for entrepreneurs, for professionals who are doing this work. And the goal was really to allow folks who are doing this work the space and the place to share, to learn, to grow, to network from other peers who are also doing the work. Because again, our mission, if you go back to why we exist, it's really to co-create a world where white supremacy does not exist. And we do that by working with our clients. We do that by talking to y'all. We do that by having a community where we can all, as Lynn likes to say, link arms in this work and support each other to move forward. And so it's in beta right now. And it launches officially on June 1st. And so if you are interested in checking us out, seeing what it's about, we are sharing our waitlist with you now. Lynn, anything else?
That's beautiful. We actually, so June 1st is also our next and last workshop of this series with Change Lawyers. And I cannot believe it is coming to an end, because it feels like it went so quickly. I don't know what I'm going to do if I don't see Carlos once a month. It's like very bizarre. We're going to have to somehow figure out how to keep going with partnerships. I love partnering with y'all. But I'm so excited that our launch day for our community is the same day that we'll be here talking about healing in this work, because the healing comes from being in community. So it's going to be so meaningful to us. Hopefully it's meaningful to you too. And in the past, we've been giving homework between sessions, there's no homework this time, because the next time we just want you to show up. We want you. Oh, will you tell? Can we give a teaser about who our guest will be?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So our guest is a friend of ours, and his name is Anthony Williams. He is based in the Bay Area. He is a mindfulness teacher, practitioner, and he is one of the very few Black men in the space of mindfulness and yoga. He has a very amazing background, which he'll talk to you about. And, he very strongly holds the We Got You Fam track in his work, and, has worked with folks who are justice involved on a regular basis for a long time. And so he has a very unique perspective on how we can be mindful in our work and make sure we're taking time to care for ourselves.
That sounds amazing. I'm very excited for that. Thank you all for running today's workshop and all the ones that came before it. I am so eager to look forward to 1 month from now on June 1st for the last part of our session. I'm also a little sad. So, it's been a very good journey, and I think a lot of people who have seen multiple sessions have sort of like built this sense of self that can only come, at least for me, through these sort of community conversations. So thank you all so much. I'll see you again in June. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Stefania.
Thank you.
All right, folks, thank you for joining us today. As you heard, we're going to be doing the final part of Leaders Forum in June. The link is in the description box right below you. You can click on it and register for the Hella Healing Workshop. And we're also queuing up a public speaking workshop, which will be the official last part of Leaders Forum. So look out for that in your inbox. And until next month, take care, and we'll see you soon.